I'm Paige Ray, host of TrojanVision's Trojan Talk. During the month of February 2023, TrojanVision set out on a mission to unearth some of the best love stories that started right here on the Troy campus. These stories aired every week through the month of February during our Trojan Talk series. We've brought them all together in one program we're calling A Match Made in Troy. We hope you enjoy. Hello and thanks for joining us for a really special edition of Trojan Talk. I'm really excited for this one. I'm Paige Ray. Joining us today is Dr. Robin Taylor and her husband, a familiar face to you. This is Aaron Taylor. We are going to be sharing a love story here today. It's Valentine's Day month, with it being February, and we were interested in hearing your story because we know Troy holds a special place in your heart. So tell me about it. How'd you meet?
So Troy is where we met, not necessarily where we fell in love, but where we met. And actually, Aaron doesn't remember, but I remember vividly.
No clue about when we first met. She has to tell me about when we first met because there's not even an inkling of recollection.
So I did not make an impression on him. However, he made a very big impression. Yeah. So not necessarily a good one, but we actually met for the first time in what is now your office. And so I think that our TV production coordinator at the time, so this was back when we were undergrads and we were both studying broadcast journalism here. It was my first time taking a camera out, and another young woman and I were going out on our first time. So I think that the TV production coordinator was afraid we were going to break the equipment. Oh, no. So he said, "Aaron, what are you doing? Why don't you go with these ladies?" And it was a story about SGA. I don't even know what it was about. I think it was just very simple. And we go out and we start getting things ready, and he starts yelling.
He does?
He does. He starts yelling. And
yelling, here's the thing, yelling,
I will get to it.
Right.
I will redeem you in a minute.
Right.
So to my very young, freshman, early, I was 19 at the time, something like that, maybe sophomore. I was yelling. So my mom asked me, "How did your first story go?" And I said, "It was good, but there was this mean boy at the TV station, and he was yelling at me the whole time." And she said, I'm gonna not go back until he graduates. And she said, "You can't let a man stand in the way of your career." So I picked myself up, I came back. And
he's ready. He's ready to tell his side.
And I realized he was not yelling at me, he just didn't have an inside voice. So that's his level all the time. All the time, that was his level.
But the thing is, I understand that. I don't have an inside voice. I still don't. For everybody that knows me and met me, I'm loud. I'm at times obnoxious. But and she'd admit to that too. But but that's the thing. Even though I don't remember that first meeting, it's ingrained. That's how powerful this was. Just I was able to make that impression, even when I wasn't even trying. Come on. But that little grain, we became friends through the rest of our time at Troy. Even though that moment, she came back. She eventually did come back, folks, okay? And she started working at the TV station, and then her and I, we graduated, and we both worked in Montgomery for our first job. She was at Channel 12, I was at Channel 8. We still maintained contact. We still, over the years, we never dated though. That was the thing. This is you're talking about love stories, but it's they fell in love at Troy. No, we didn't fall in love at Troy, but it started our relationship that we kept for years, and it was almost 13 years maybe, 14 years before I ever asked her out on a date. But the moons aligned at the right moment, and it was this moment where we knew that we were meant to be together. And so, but Troy's a major part of our lives, our relationship. We both work at Troy, but it was what started our relationship, this friendship that carried over into more than that. And of course, isn't that what everybody wants? You want to marry your best friend, and that's what I did, And so that's that Troy relationship is why. So even though I scared her, even though I yelled at her, even though everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, he scared her," but the thing was that relationship blossomed, and Troy is a part of it, and all the elements of people we knew when we were in school together are still all parts of our lives. even the fact that my roommate and a good friend of ours was there the night that her water broke when our kid was born. So we were at dinner. So that's a story for another time. But those relationships still hold to today.
And we had Troy folks that we had met at Troy, even here at TrojanVision in our wedding. So those relationships that we made have lasted into adulthood, into now. And so it's nice to be able to kind of be spending your time with someone who has known you throughout all kinds of transitions and changes and still chooses to love you.
Yes, of course. It's hard. It's hard not to love this one right here. I mean, she's amazing. But also the fact that it's always cute and people think about that we work in the same building together. I mean, she's the director of Hall School of Journalism. I'm the TV manager. We even though it's in separate departments, we both work in the same building. We were across the lobby from each other. So when our son Brooks was born, and he becomes like the Wallace Hall kid because he just kind of wanders around and goes between her office and my office, and he is developing this love for Troy as well, and so it's all part of being in the Troy family. This relationship is there, and it's like all started from this one little meeting in what used to be my office, but now is your office. So
let me ask you this: a lot of kids come to college and hope they'll find the one, and for some they do, some they don't. I mean, you guys technically did, but then also technically didn't. What would you say to someone who maybe starting to get into a relationship, or at the end of the day, what's your relationship advice for young people?
I think don't push things that aren't there, and also timing is everything. Even though we were very good friends in college, we spent time at each other's houses with all of our other friends. We spent time in Montgomery together. When I lived in Destin, Fort Walton, he came down and visited some. But we were different people. So it took the right time in our lives and us maturing to a different level to be right for each other. So I think we kind of cosmically came together as friends in college, and then we helped each other through things over the years, and we grew into different people, and that timing was important for us. So I think, sometimes the timing's just not right, and so don't force it, just let it come back around.
Are you going to stick with what she said, or do you have another piece? As someone who's scared your potential spouse.
Don't force it. Don't get anything you shouldn't get into, and listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Oh yes,
listen to your parents.
My mom asked me when we were in college, why don't you date that guy Aaron? And I said, oh, we're just friends. And then in Montgomery, she said, why don't you date your friend Aaron? And I said, oh, we're just friends. And
Mom knew.
She
knew.
Best. She knew. She also told me to be a teacher, and I said I don't want to be a teacher. And here we
are.
Mom always knows best. Yeah.
Well, I know I can speak for really everybody who works in this department. You two are like the dynamic duo. You are couple goals. #couple goals for sure. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your love story with us. It's really sweet.
Thank you for asking us.
Oh, thank you. Love you, baby.
I love you.
Oh, okay. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Trojan Talk. Hello and welcome to this edition of Trojan Talk. I'm Paige Ray. Joining us today for our Valentine's Day series is Joe McCall and Sylvia Lee. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Of course. So we are talking today about love stories that either started at Troy or maybe heavily involved Troy. And I've been told y'all's story fits the bill. Is that right?
I think that's right.
Yes.
We met in married student housing. I was a crusty old bachelor, happy to be living the quiet, studious life of a scholar. I was on the 3rd floor, and she moved into the 2nd floor.
Oh, neighbors.
And she's visiting scholar.
I was a visiting scholar, from a university. We have those partnership with the Chinese university, and I came and planned for a year of visiting scholar, and then I met him.
Okay, so how did you actually meet? You live next to each other, but...
Well, I've always befriended a lot of the internationals, and so I was friends with a lot of the scholars. And so when she moved in downstairs, I already knew her roommate, and I invited him to dinner, and I'd take him to the store and to this and that.
Yeah, but he has a car.
Yeah, I had a car. In fact, I had a van, which is very good, because a lot of times there are a lot of scholars. But I thought she was married. And so at first it was just, we developed a friendship. I shouldn't say just, because we had a good friendship.
Yeah.
And that went on for a couple of months until I found out that she wasn't married.
And the game changed.
It was a game changer.
Yeah, and the first time I actually met, oddly enough, the first evening I got in Troy, And I've actually saw him. Later, I started to, memory started to fade away. But what happened was one student came here and got in Pace Hall, same night when I got in Troy. And then she was like, well, I need an extra blanket. And so my roommate said, I know a person who might have a blanket. So she came up to his apartment, got a blanket, and that's when I first saw him, and we sent that blanket to the student.
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve,
Right.
2000, before 2011.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask, how long have you been together?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we've been
We're
married
together.
a little more than 11 years.
A little more than
Yeah.
So see, right away, she was wrapped in the warmth of my love.
So I need to know, you were here supposed to visit and then go back. So how did that work? How did y'all?
Well, I was thinking about, by the time we were dating, and then it was, springtime, and then after a couple months, and basically I have to face this reality of, do I give up the relationship and go back to China and keep working there, or do I stay? And I don't want to be, just staying here. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, an international office has this position as an admission specialist. Oh my God. And before that, I was helping with the ESL program about teaching, because I was a teacher before I came. And so they were like, well, your English is good enough. You've been working for so many years, and do you want to try? And we have this position. I said, well, I'll apply. And so I was like, now I have a job to stay here, so I'm not just only, getting, having a relationship. That's the start of me trying to, stay here and see where that relationship goes.
So you guys truly have an international relationship, because I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, your family is still in China.
Yes. My parents, my brother, sister-in-law, with their two daughters.
And your family here in the States?
My family's all from Alabama, but I grew up in New York City.
Okay.
And so two different worlds, but I'd come back home starting 1999. I'd come back south and went to grad school at Auburn. I changed careers by going to grad school, and then got hired here. It was supposed to be just one quarter. For a professor who was ill, and it just kept stretching more and more. But we do have an international relationship. Mm-hmm. For years, I worked as the faculty advisor to ISCO, so I worked with a lot of the international kids. We've taken kids to China on study abroad trips, and I tag along with her.
He went to China before we met, actually.
Yeah. But we go over to China once COVID's over, knock on wood.
Now, it would be just wrong to not bring up one of the cutest kids here on campus.
So you're going to tell that story or me?
I was 39 when I had Finn.
Wow. And how old is he now?
He's 6 now.
6 years old. How big of a part did Troy play in bringing you guys together?
I think from the first beginning to all those years, and all those years he works with ISCO. Mm-hmm. Despite, I think, other than ISCO, he's one of the best teachers. He's such a good teacher. And
it makes me blush.
And he went to Nanjing that year. And when I couldn't go, and just to teach in a program I was setting up. And so everything is about Troy, and always, we love Troy deeply, and that's just always a part of our life.
And now it's a part of Finn's life, and he really is. He goes to the astronomy club, he goes to ISCO, he goes to marches and gatherings, and he's a citizen of Troy.
I love it.
And right from the beginning, in fact, the chancellor gave us a little onesie. So Finn's always had his Troy colors.
Well, we love your family. You guys are so sweet, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Right.
I think it's really special.
Okay, so I get to kiss her on the camera?
Yeah, go right ahead. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Trojan Talk. Hello and welcome to this edition of Trojan Talk. I'm Paige Ray. We are continuing our Valentine's Day series, this time with Dr. Teresa Johnson and Mr. Buddy Johnson. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So we are exploring love stories that either started at Troy or Troy played a really big part in it. And I've been told y'all's story is one of those. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so easiest question, when did you guys first meet?
Well, we first met. I was, president of Collegiate Singers, and she was elected out of Collegiate Singers to represent us in the Miss Troy State University pageant.
Oh my goodness.
And she had to come to me to get the paperwork, and I made a couple of comments about what she brought back to me, including the 3.0 average. And she quickly told me she knew what that was.
Which we need to pause back then.
Back then.
Yes.
It was all A's. And when I handed him the paper, he held it up, shared it with a friend, pointed, and started laughing. So our relationship started with hate. So I thought, what is he laughing
What a jerk.
about? What a jerk. And he called me back over and he said, you have a 3.0. Do you know what that means? Yes.
I was being cool.
That's how it started.
Cool.
She told me later that she thought I was a real jerk. But then,
Absolutely.
fast forward a few days, I guess, was what it was. It was February the 9th, which is 50 years today.
Wow.
50 years today was our first date. And she couldn't go home to Brantley. She commuted because of the 11 inches of snow.
Yeah.
So I invited her and a couple of her friends too to where I was living at that time with two other guys. And I made this just wonderful meal. I made this great spaghetti that my mother had taught me how to make.
It was horrible.
She tells it how it is. We get the real story here.
Yeah.
After he had made the comment about my GPA, it was February 2nd, his birthday. The whole Collegiate Singers
You aren't supposed to tell
had
this.
sung happy birthday to Buddy. After class, he was leaning against the door as I was going out, and he looked at me and he said, today's my birthday.
Oh no.
And I said, I know, we just sang to you. And so then he said to an English major,
Oh no.
can I walk you to class?
Oh.
My immediate,
Strike one.
Yeah, my immediate response was, I don't know. I don't know if you'll be able to keep up with me because I will not be late. And so we walked over because I'm very conscientious about getting to class on time, and he walked with me. I don't remember.
I picked you up and carried you across the quad.
That was when it snowed.
Oh, this is a different time.
That was when it
I'm getting
snowed.
old.
Yeah. When it snowed, Collegiates is at the heart of this because we both love music. And Collegiates dismissed, we went outside, and he kept throwing snowballs at me. Oh, and then I had on some really nice boots that I didn't want ruined, and we were trekking across campus, and so he was gonna, I will carry you. He promptly dropped me.
You didn't mention that in the original story
You,
there.
you are not getting
Mr.
any
Buddy.
of my story. We're going to have a version 2 of this.
Well, tell me this, because despite all of the rockiness that was there,
It got better.
you guys have been married how long?
We have been married 49 years, March the 16th.
Yeah.
And now Troy clearly has made a huge impact. I mean, you guys are
Sure.
still here. One of your children, their name
Yeah.
Right, it's
is
Troy.
Troy.
And all 3 graduated from
Yeah,
here.
we love Troy, and we have always loved Troy. And even when we were living away, we would make it back for ball games or for special functions. Troy is just in our family. Just at the center of all activities, and the children come back and then they come back over, and it's been remarkable the progress, the beautification of the campus is at the center of everything good here. And we are just so thankful that we're living our dream.
Well, you guys, I feel like we would need to do a 2-hour interview to fit it all in. But, you know, I've known Mr. Buddy for several years. He always talks so highly of you. You can tell he's still enamored after 49 years.
That's right.
And you're here. And, you know, we're just so thankful that you shared your story with us. Thank you.
We thank you for having us.
Of course. And thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk. Hello and welcome to this edition of Trojan Talk. I'm Paige Ray. Joining us today is General Richard Batwell, the Senior Vice Chancellor for Advancement, and his wife Leslie. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
Of course. So this is our Valentine's Day themed Tea Talk. We're talking to couples whose love stories either started at Troy or greatly hinge on Troy. I'm told that is very similar to you guys. Is that right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
So, first question, easiest question, it should be at least. How long have you been together?
Coming up on 32 years
32 years. Wow.
of marriage. And
Yeah.
then a year
June
of
8th is our,
engagement.
we were engaged a year. I think we actually met in 1989 and we started dating. We had a pretty short courtship, but then we were engaged for a year. And, you know, I like to joke, it was back during the Top Gun days. And those ROTC people who had a pilot slot, every Friday they got to wear their flight suits. And I like to say I was just a girl who fell in love with a boy in a flight suit across the quad. And but then, of course, you know, get to know his character, and I fell in love with the man. But that wasn't too shabby. He looked really cute in his white suit.
That was a plus, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys have been all over the country, right?
17 moves, is that what we said,
I
honey?
believe so.
17 moves, and you know, I think about it like we're both from Alabama. You know, we would have never gotten to see Hong Kong and Singapore and Japan and, you know, all of these incredible places. But, you know, he got the foundation and the leadership through the ROTC program right here at Troy. And, you know, again, I just fell in love with the cuteness of the flight suit. I had no idea how it would enrich our lives as a family, you know, this Air Force life. So 30 years, yeah, we've been around the country, and so our story comes full circle. And you know, you have to tell about what we told the girls about where we actually met.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay.
Well, we had caught each other's eye. Leslie has already told you about her story. Mine was I was always trying to get in. I'm a morning person. I like to get my classes early, and one semester I had a break between my 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock class, so I would go park over at the gym where I was a physical education
Was that
major.
Sartain at the time? Yeah, yeah.
But I had the privilege of, when I got there, to see the folks that were going to the 9 o'clock class, and I saw Leslie and got to see her, but I'd never had the opportunity to meet her. And so one night, me and one of my ROTC friends were out at an unnamed establishment, and Leslie was out with some of her friends, and we noticed each other. We're having separate conversations about each other, and I told my friend, I said, if the opportunity comes up and she comes close, you need to introduce us, and he certainly did, and the conversation was very easy and energetic, and then.
Well, our first dance was, I'll never forget it, it was To Faithfully by Journey. So of course that's our song. But we did tell the girls, you know, that we met at a youth group. And
youth group.
It is,
right.
Until Haley came here, she was like, Mom, the front porch is not a youth group. I was like,
Not what I think of when you say the youth group.
I guess it's a named establishment.
I'm sorry, yeah.
That's okay. I feel like a lot of people maybe.
Well, if you've gone to Troy or you're from, familiar with the area,
Yes.
everybody knows that establishment. But it was funny, we never really said. And then and when Haley started here, she was like,
The truth.
we said, well, it is a place where youths
Gather.
group
It's a group
together,
group of
A
youth.
group of youths at that place, yes. There might be a church nearby somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it is. It's those are great memories. That's really fun.
And now you mentioned a couple times about how this is a full circle kind of moment. You guys are back. I feel like that just underscores how much you guys enjoy Troy and you love the university. Would you agree with that?
Oh,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I attended 3 different universities. So I was an aspiring baseball player, and sometimes it's not an easy path, and it's probably due to my ability, but nonetheless, I got to experience 3 universities, and God led me where I was supposed to be. As much as I was resisting and trying to find it myself, I had the opportunity to come here, and just immediately, as soon as you step on campus, and when the teachers know you by name, and the chancellor calls you by name, first when he has no reason to remember your name, just that sense of family that a lot of universities use as a motto. It's a lifestyle here, and it was very evident from day one.
Let me ask you this one last question. A lot of people come to college, and some may not think about finding their person. Others, that's a hope when they get here.
Right.
What advice would you give people who are maybe starting a relationship or are looking for their person?
Well, I'm sure we could both say that, we didn't realize it at the time, but we were both praying separately. We're both believers. We have a strong faith, and we truly believe that God brought us together, and so I would say, just seek wisdom, know yourself, know your values, and try to find that person that shares those values and that you can have fun with. And I had no idea, when we married, I'd be going on this grand adventure. But hopefully the unity, it's not always easy, no relationship is, but the unity and the connection that we formed right here in this place, and our first little married apartment was down by the lagoon, and so you drive around and you feel that. But I would say that for us, it was just God's provision for us to find each other, and then just the commitment and the unity has been such a gift. What would your advice be?
I totally agree.
Ditto.
I would totally agree that there's a great country song that says, "I prayed for you." And God answered that before I even knew before I ever got the opportunity to meet Leslie. And there was obviously an attractiveness, as most kids or students on campus, you see that attractiveness, but or attracted to somebody else. But give that time to where you get to know that person, and that's where love finds itself. And so be patient with that process, because you might see somebody that catches your eye. The more you get to know them, it may not be a match for your values and your principles or your dreams for what life has to hold.
Well, that's so true, honey. And what we would tell our girls is don't settle for anything less than God's best for you. We've all probably settled in the past, and obviously it didn't work out, but just don't settle for anything less than God's best for you.
Thank you so much for not only joining us, but being willing to share your story. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Paige.
you so much.
Of course.
It's a joy to be with you.
Of course. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Trojan Talk.